Forgotten sense. Humans used to navigate the world. Right now, without looking, point toward your front door. Most people get this wrong, not by a few degrees, by entire rooms, entire walls, sometimes entire directions. Your ancestors would have found that strange because for most of human history, getting that question wrong wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was how you died, lost in the dark, in the cold, 50 miles from anything resembling home, with no one coming to look for you until it was already too late. We didn't just lose a skill, we lost a sense, and it's not the only one. For decades, scientists taught that humans run on 5 blunt senses compared to the rest of the animal kingdom. Dogs track scent across a city block. Eagles spot prey from a mile up. Birds navigate entire continents using the Earth's magnetic field. Humans, the story goes, traded all of that away the moment we got smart enough to build tools instead of relying on our own bodies. But that story is starting to fall apart. In 2007, researchers at UC Berkeley ran an experiment that should have ended the idea that humans can't track scent. They dragged a chocolate-scented trail across a grass field, blindfolded a group of students, blocked their hearing, and told them to follow the smell on their hands and knees. They followed it. Not perfectly, not like a bloodhound, but they zigzagged along the trail the same way a dog does, correcting left and right as the scent faded and sharpened, using both nostrils to triangulate direction, the same way we use 2 eyes to judge depth. Nobody had trained them to do this. They just knew how, the same way you know how to flinch before you've decided to. So if the hardware is still there, why does it feel completely useless? Because for most of your life, you've never needed it. You live indoors in climate-controlled rooms with deodorized air, surrounded by competing artificial smells, scrolling past information instead of sniffing it out. The sense never disappeared. It just went unused so consistently that most people forgot it was ever load-bearing. And smell isn't the only sense we quietly benched. Before compasses, before GPS, before road signs, there were the wayfinders. Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean in canoes with no instruments, using the angle of swells hitting the hull, the flight patterns of seabirds at dusk, and a memorized map of star paths that rotated overhead like a clock. Master navigators trained in that tradition could reportedly tell which island a wave had bounced off of, just by how it moved under the canoe, hours before any land was visible. Inuit hunters did something similar across the Arctic, reading wind-carved snow ridges to hold a bearing through featureless white for days at a time, in conditions where one wrong turn meant you didn't come back, and no search party would find you before the cold did. These weren't superhuman outliers. These were ordinary people, raised in environments that demanded the skill, trained from early childhood until it became automatic, invisible, no different from breathing. Not innate genius. Practice applied to a sense every human brain already comes equipped with, and here's the part that should bother you a little. In 2000, neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire scanned the brains of London taxi drivers, the ones who spend years memorizing the city's 25,000 streets to pass a test called the knowledge. Their hippocampus, the brain region responsible for spatial memory, was measurably larger than average. The longer they'd driven, the bigger the difference, as if the brain had physically grown a new room to hold the map. Then, GPS arrived, and studies tracking habitual GPS users started finding the opposite pattern. Less hippocampal engagement, weaker spatial memory formation, a brain quietly outsourcing the job to a device in your pocket. We didn't lose our sense of direction because evolution stripped it out. We're switching it off ourselves, one turn-by-turn notification at a time, one generation at a time. Now think about your eyes for a second. For 300,000 years, human vision adapted to a world that went genuinely, completely dark every single night. Your eyes still carry that legacy. Give them roughly 20 minutes in true darkness, and your pupils widen, your rod cells flood with rhodopsin, and your peripheral vision sharpens enough to pick out shapes by starlight alone. Sailors and soldiers have used this for centuries, deliberately sitting in darkness before a night mission so their eyes could fully adapt. Almost nobody experiences that anymore. Streetlights, phone screens, the glow under your bedroom door, all of it keeps your eyes locked in a permanent twilight that never lets the rods finish loading? Researchers studying modern light exposure have found that something as simple as 1 week of camping with zero artificial light is enough to noticeably shift the body's internal light-sensing rhythm back toward its old baseline. The hardware recalibrates almost immediately. It was just waiting for the lights to actually go out. Then, there's the one even scientists are still arguing about. In 2019, a research team at Caltech ran an experiment placing human subjects inside a shielded chamber that could rotate magnetic fields without their knowledge. While the field shifted, some subjects showed a measurable drop in a specific brainwave pattern, the same kind of response seen in animals known to navigate by magnetism, like migratory birds and sea turtles. The subjects felt nothing, reported nothing. Their conscious mind had no idea anything had happened. Their brain, on the other hand, clearly noticed. Nobody is claiming humans have a compass needle the way a pigeon does. The result is contested, hard to replicate, and far from settled science. But it raises an uncomfortable question. What if part of your nervous system is still quietly processing information you have no conscious access to at all? Information your ancestors might have used without ever knowing why a place simply felt right or why a path felt wrong, long before anything obvious went wrong on it. Maybe the clearest proof that these dormant senses still function comes from Daniel Kish. Kish lost both eyes to cancer before he turned 2. He should not, by any conventional measure, be able to mountain bike down forest trails or identify the shape and distance of a building from across a parking lot. But he can. He does it by clicking his tongue and listening to the echo bounce back, a self-taught form of echolocation, close to what bats and dolphins use to hunt in total darkness. Brain scans of Kish show something remarkable. When he clicks and listens, the visual cortex of his brain, the part that should sit dark and unused without eyes feeding it anything, lights up as if he's actually seeing the room. His brain repurposed unused territory and turned sound into something close to sight. Not magic, just a sense the rest of us never bothered to develop, because an easier one was already available to us from birth. There's one more, and it's the strangest, because it isn't pointed outward at the world at all. It's pointed inward, at your own body. Proprioception is the sense that tells you where your limbs are without looking at them. How a hand finds a doorknob in the dark on the first try. How a foot finds the next stair, without your eyes ever leaving the phone in your hand. It's one of the fastest, most constantly active senses you have. And it's also one of the easiest to let go, soft. Years spent sitting in chairs, walking on flat, predictable surfaces, never balancing on uneven ground, never climbing, never crawling, and the sense quietly narrows its working range. People who grow up barefoot on rough, uneven terrain tend to develop a noticeably wider margin of balance and limb awareness than people who spend their whole lives on flat floors in shoes engineered to correct for every imperfection underfoot. The sense isn't gone, it's just been told year after year that it doesn't need to try very hard anymore. That's the pattern running through every example here. The sense was never deleted, it was deprioritized. Use it constantly, the way the Wayfinders did, the way Kish had to, and the brain devotes real territory to it. Ignore it for a generation or two. Hand the job to a screen, a streetlight, a satellite, and the brain quietly reallocates that territory elsewhere. The neural version of a muscle wasting away from disuse, except nobody ever told you the muscle existed in the first place. We didn't evolve into a duller species. We built a world so comfortable, so pre-mapped, so externally outsourced that most of these abilities became optional, and optional abilities given enough generations of comfort start to look a lot like missing ones, right up until something strips the comfort away and you're left standing there, holding senses you forgot you had. So go back to that front door. Close your eyes again. The compass is probably still in there, the same hardware your ancestors used to cross oceans without instruments and walk home through total darkness, without a single light. It's just been buried under years of a phone voice telling you to turn left in 400 feet. It didn't disappear. It's just been a very long time since anyone asked it to do its job.